This is Robert Morales from Morales Business Network, and today I'm here with
Carlos Velasco, founder and CEO of Novle.
The Morales Business Network was formed to support our entrepreneurs and small business owners through network marketing. Thank you for joining us, and for the next 20 minutes, we're going to be talking to Carlos about him and his business, but more importantly about who he is. Morales Business Network, we believe in connecting people via video marketing and exploring the you in your business. So with that said, we like your likes, but
we love your loves.
So hit those love buttons and let that sea of red just kind of swoon past us.
Let's do it.
And right now, if you want to make some comments, if you want to share this video, we appreciate that. If you're on YouTube right now, hit the subscribe button below, and that bell icon will give you notifications of future postings of these videos.
All right.
Mr. Velasco.
Yes, sir.
Oh, so formal. I like it.
You know.
Let's start off with Novle. What is Novle?
Novle is an idea. I think it's an idea that comes from the heart. Yeah. This idea behind doing meaningful work that could also be connecting brands in a way that is meaningful but also profitable, leveraging the power of the human element.
If you have a copy of Insight Magazine, Mr. Velasco is on page 11. This is our July edition. He gave some information in here. The idea that people want to belong is part of something that is bigger than themselves. So tell me a little bit about what that means.
I think because of the times that we live in, right? So much of our world is changing. That more and more people are seeking this connection to work, connection to place, connection to connection to doing something meaningful, something that really matters. I think as we're moving out of the transactional world and moving more into the meaningful world, we want our work to provide us that sense of connection and that sense of meaning and that sense of belonging. So for me, that was my personal need as an entrepreneur, and I figure that other people that participate in the activities in the work we do are wanting to be part of that as well.
I think in business, people yearn for relationships, but they don't know how to foster them.
Sure.
You want to talk about how we foster a relationship, or at least how Novle does it?
Look, I think it's always about being as genuine and as authentic and as real as you can be. At the end of the day, those relationships, those business relationships that are sustainable in the long term, are those that are able to become meaningful, right? Yeah. You have to have a certain level of trust and meaning behind a relationship that you do in the normal world. Why not transfer that into the business world? The business world has created a culture and a belief that you have to develop and create this wall and be someone that you're not. And again, I feel that that's changing. And people are yearning to know the people that they do business with, build meaningful relationships with them, so they can be everlasting. They go beyond the business transaction piece. And why not? I love to do work with people that I love. That's the simple way I think that I could put it. So we want to transfer that idea and that sentiment through the Novle work.
Well, part of your history was started in organizations. Sure. and in social causes. Mm-hmm. So do you want to talk a little bit about those early days of what?
It's interesting because I started in my pursuit, right? In my ambitious pursuit, it was always about the money and the material. I fell into the financial planning industry when I came to Arizona about 15 or 16 years ago with this end goal in mind. How much money can I make, and what are the nicest cars that I can drive in a certain life that I want to live in, which I still do. But through that financial planning work, I found organizations that were talking about this idea about the social needs that existed within the Latino community. So that was very impactful to me from a standpoint of saying, well, shit, those are a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the people that I see. When you walk in a lot of the communal spaces, poverty is not as evident and need is not as evident in this country as it is in everywhere else. So that just sparked a little fire in me in saying, well, I want to be able to do more. I want to really have a position in this country as a Latino to be able to build a foundation, because succession's happening. So much is talked about the sleeping giant awakening, and I have always taken that as a sense of responsibility to do more. And in some ways, having to prove myself. I think that's part of the American experience, right? For many of us immigrants.
Everybody has this sense of purpose to help others. Is this your means to kind of connect that? What is your means to do that?
To my feel was that people wanted to connect to people, to connect to other people, to do collective work that's meaningful and that is impactful. And I think the real passion in the work, has always been that our work helps to ultimately build community. It's a space where people come in, they become communal, they build those relationships, and those communities begin to transform themselves. I was built by community. I was built in a tribe almost in Ecuador. So when I came to this country, I noticed that was part of what was missing. So I started doing the work unintentionally, and then thinking about, well, what's driving me to do this work? What's the underlying feeling in my heart? And I always realized that what I love about the work was that in all the activities that we did, in all the activation, we were building community.
Why Latinos? Why not any other demographic? Why specifically Latinos?
I think it's because I'm more in tune to be able to serve that community because of my upbringing, my background, the language, my cultural sensitivity, my experience, my history. It's nothing against not having to be inclusive or be diverse, but I felt where I could have the most impact is within that community. Like a lot of times you hear in the business world, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way, it's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. It's where I can be natural, and my upbringing and my American experience allows me to be able to mold myself to the Latino culture in a way that benefits me to do the work and mobilize people into action.
Do you feel it's hard to connect with other demographics?
I do think it's easier to connect with the Latino community, man, because that's just who I am, and I'm very proud of that. And I do feel a sense of responsibility as a Latino to work in helping the progression of our community, to really help in saying, hey guys, let's not forget that this is an opportunity that many people are fighting for. You see the children and the families that are trying to come from Honduras, traveling thousands of miles. So let's not take that for granted.
Corporations are targeting Latinos. Why do you think people in other demographics are targeting the Latino community?
For profit. Not all of them, but I think a good majority of them. And a lot of it has to do with our own fault. And even if you hear the language, so much is talk about the Latino market, the potential of the market, the $61 billion of buying power and all that shit. And I always say, that's not a market to me, man. That's a community. So if you don't begin to change the line scope, the lens in the way that you look at this community, because if you look at it as a market, then you're not invested. Right? You don't have to give a shit. All you really care about is taking the money and then walking away. And potentially even having corporations. I know that a lot of corporations that take a lot of money from our community are supporting things that are against our community. And wanting to be proactive, what is it that we can do? What is it that I can do? What is it that we can create to help those corporations understand the value of being relevant, the value of integrating, and the value of being meaningful? In some ways, I think that we were ahead of the game in this idea because so much of the market now is beginning to drive into this idea that hey, you have to be meaningful, you have to understand social costs because Latinos have become more educated. We are a lot more skeptical now in the way we choose brands. And so now corporations are having to really think about well, what's my narrative and how am I part of this community? Not just like, oh, here it is, buy this, it's the cheapest or whatever the fuck, we take your money and then we never give a shit about investing in some of the needs that a lot of our Latino community still has.
As corporations, or as anybody out there in a corporation may be watching this video, in that genuine sense, what kind of actions can they take to really connect with that community?
Look, I'm blessed enough. Right now, we're blessed enough to work with organizations that I think are very authentic in this idea that we want to work with the Latino community, but we want to build a relationship. We want to do it the right way. We want to listen. We want to understand. We want to invest. And what that creates really is a better feeling for the organization. It's more sustainable for them long term. What we've seen is that as these corporations begin to have a seat at the table and they begin in some ways emotionally invested into their customers and their families and their communities, is that they become more relevant in the market, right? They are able to gain a competitive advantage. If you understand the cultural aspects, if you understand what triggers me, you're going to be able to market to that in community in a way that people are going to feel is authentic, in a way that people are going to feel that, hey, you know what, this brand ultimately cares. And once you earn my fucking loyalty, once you're able to prove value to me in a way that you move my heartstring as a Latino, you have my loyalty forever. And we talk, man. Our communal circles are still very large.
We've talked about balance and balancing out profitability with sincerity.
Sure.
And do you think that's possible for a corporation to do that?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the way of the future. If you're not going to survive. I mean, look at some of the companies who are taking that risk, like Nike, right? They're taking a fucking social stand. They're starting to understand that their brand is not going to survive unless they become politically active into issues that impact those consumers. Now, they took a lot of heat for it, but they also Nike became relevant again. The way people used to look at the brand because it has meaning.
So we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be back in just a few seconds.
If you marketed to the Latino community, you probably follow the standard agency model. You cut them a check, they take your message, and spread it around en español. And you're left there crossing your fingers hoping that you did the right thing. When your money runs out, the agency rolls out the campaign, and they replace you with someone else. You get average results at best, and the Latino community gets another one of these brands barking at them. It's frustrating, I know. You see, the work that these agencies do is called exposure. It's tired, it's expensive, and it's unsustainable. And it's also heavily stacked in favor of the agency. Over the years, we found that what good companies truly want is to invest in order to connect with the Latino community. They want to have a lasting impact that is meaningful and valuable. And the way to do that is through integration, not exposure. And that's what we do better than anyone else. We help good companies integrate with the Latino community. Because once you put in the fundamental work, your ability to activate the community becomes possible.
We're back here with Carlos Velasco from Novle, talking about corporations, and we still like your likes, but we
Love your loves.
So make sure you keep hitting those love buttons, making comments, and please share if you like what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Your family, how important or what role do they play in what you're doing?
Big role, right? Because that's the rock, right? The safe place. Like every entrepreneur and parent, you always think about your children and that legacy that you want to leave behind. My wife really protects her bubble, which is her family, and that's her role, right? That's her role. While I go out there and try to save the world, like she says. But she's also an awesome professional, and we find the balance, man. We find the balance, and again, that's for me. That's just my heart.
Because I troll on Facebook a little bit. I looked at a lot of pictures. You're the type of person, at least from my perspective, that's in the mix, is always kind of involved in something. When you say balance, I see balance between your family and the things that you're doing, and mostly with your wife, since you brought up Noemi, right? Yeah. And how long you guys been married?
So we've been married now for 8 years. We're about to go into our 9th year.
Congratulations. We'll cut that out, maybe.
It's a happy in love, man. That it's hard to keep track. I'm not counting the years, but yeah, I think really Noemi, my wife, is the one who creates that balance for the family, because she always creates the prayer. Not that I don't, but I got so much passion with the work, and she's always pulling me back. And through life experiences, I've also learned that that is the safe house. That is something that my contribution to the world is going to come through my children and the type of children that I have to raise. So I think those are just things that I've learned through life and through time, that you have to look at bringing value in a way that is balanced, right? And I do hold a big responsibility with my wife and then with my children.
Yeah, and generally speaking too, when I'm on Facebook and I'm seeing people's lives and what they want to portray, it seems in every kind of situation you guys are totally, if I may, in love. If that's the right word to say.
We are. And love is love is love, right? And it's not perfect, and it's not, ups and downs. But I think we've always made it a point of just to communicate. Like all the cliches, right, that your parents tell you. Don't go to fucking bed mad, don't do this, don't do that. If you follow those simple instructions, you can build a great marriage. Sometimes you have to have tough conversations, and again, look, man, I've learned that this happy wife, happy life deal, it really is, right? Within balance as well. I always try to just look at my wife and be like, if I make her happy, she makes me happy, and she supports the work. It's not easy. We spend a lot of time on the street in this business, but but she's extremely supportive. Because this work is heavy, man. You're in it. The networking, it seems easy and it's fun, and you're out there and you're talking to people, but it takes a toll on you, man. I just went out for Thanksgiving 4 days, and I was at a point where I was exhausted. And the perception and if you look at anyone who looks at our work, thinks like, man, you're always out there in events and having parties, and then, it's part of the work, but it's exhausting, man. It really is exhausting to have to. In some ways, follow people, lead people, right? Support people. We play different roles. We have to be peacemakers and facilitators, and so it can get pretty exhausting. So I think my wife notices those things, and she's always tries to pull me back.
In the course of all this work and being in a relationship, having a family, what's been the biggest challenge?
This business could be detrimental on your health if you don't take care of it, because it could be heavy sometimes. We're in the activation aspect of the work, and a lot of times you're exposed to a lot of shit, a lot of injustice. So you really have to take it one day at a time, and you can, if you get into this attitude of having to carry the problems of the world on your shoulders for people that deeply care, then it could eat at you, man. It could eat at your mental health, it could eat at your physical health, your spiritual health. It's really about finding ways, like any other professional, right, to find your escapes, to regroup and maintain your alignment.
When somebody buys a product, they're fulfilling a need that they get from this product. But when it comes to service, that service is usually tied to a person. Have you ever come across any issues where you got kind of pulled in a direction that you didn't want to go?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, but those are the lessons, right? I mean, it's. I'm still only 40 years old. I have so much to learn, right? From 30 to 40, it was an interesting 10 years. I always embrace it, man. For me, there's no time wasted. And I always give myself into every opportunity and open myself up to it. I'm learning to be more strategic. And then I think with time, just life teaches you how to value your time. How by valuing your time, you get to also value the time of others, right? Every time you say no to something, I heard you're saying yes to something else. But again, man, I'm not... my nature is always, I get bored if I'm too stagnant. My structure doesn't work for me, right?
I would know that. Yeah.
So
I'm very much the same way. I can't.
So and I think that's just the nature of an entrepreneur. So I like my work because it allows me to do different things, and allows me to be like, hey, you want to go do this crazy shit? Like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Try it. And I'm gonna learn something out of it. I'm gonna build relationships with people, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, that's great too.
And having that ability to always kind of brush off the negativity and move forward, I think.
And sometimes you have to embrace it too. I uncover a lot of things about my negative self through my negativity. So I've also learned that it's healthy sometimes to just give in to the negativity. Give in and...
Do you have a moment? Do you have an example of that?
Fuck, a lot. Yeah, man, a lot of times you feel like, fuck, I'm not going to make it. I'm not meant for it. You have your dreams and you have the visions and the things you want to accomplish, and you hit a wall and you hit a wall and you hit a wall. So that's aspects that you have to fight through. A lot of times it's feeling like you're making a difference. You scale back, and I'm like, am I really making a difference? Does this work mean shit to people? Does it mean? It's because sometimes you get into a space where your work doesn't have meaning, where you feel meaningless in what you're doing, right? You feel this little, you feel unimportant, irrelevant. Again, those are things that are constantly a constant battle within your mind, right? But coincidentally, today I was listening to Audible about persuasion that talks about happiness is like any other muscle, man. You gotta work towards being happy. It's like, I thought I'm just supposed to be. No, man, you gotta work, or else you're gonna be fat in negativity, right? So nothing wrong with being fat, but I'm saying, like, if you want to have a healthy, happy life, then you're gonna have to fight for it, man.
Simon Sinek. I watched one of his YouTube videos, and he talks about the infinite game. In business, I think is very structured like that. There's no rules.
Sure.
And what we teach in corporation, what we teach people is how to win at a game that has no rules.
Right.
Is that possible? I mean, that...
I think entrepreneurship is about freedom, right? Like, entrepreneurship is a lot about risk, emotionally, financially. I mean, it's your shit. You're an artist. Draw it whatever way you want, right? Figure it out. So that's what I love about the aspect of being an entrepreneur, that if I want to shift the brand narrative in the next 10 years, I can do that, man. I'm the founder, I'm the trustee of the brand, but for now, I'm the person that can make that decision. So corporations can do the same, and no one can be fixed into something, right? If you don't evolve, if you don't change, then you die, right? That's just nature, I think. I'm absurd, right? I read.
Getting ready for this interview, I felt a little nervous, and I haven't felt that in a long time. And I really want to connect it to that sense of humility. You want to portray somebody as best you can, and portray that what you feel connected with them. What experiences have you had that make you a humble person, or make you humble today?
It's life, man. Life teaches you. So it's I don't think I've always been a humble individual. You get wrapped up into your ego and thinking that you're bigger shit than what you really are. But life has a way, right? Life has a way to kind of bring you back to the core, and So it's just not losing perspective, and I think finding balance. Everything's about health, healthy ego, healthy humility. I don't agree with the philosophy that you have to kill the ego. I think the ego is necessary. I am more about work with it. But be healthy, be reasonable with it, and don't let it manage you. So it really touches me that you feel that I'm humble. I mean, that reinforces something that I'm working for.
I had not felt this nervous about any interview. I mean, I do these all the time, you know. And then,
about being humble, right?
But the new endeavor, Lazos. Do you want to just kind of do a quick plug and talk about what that means?
Yeah, we're very proud to be, and again, very proud and very humble to have the opportunity to do Lazos. So Lazos really tells the story of what Novle does. Is we gather a group of individuals that have a collective desire to bring more small business into civic engagement, who see how critical it is for the small business to be civically engaged, and they develop this vision. Right, it's not my vision. I was simply a facilitator, and saying, "Hey, let's get more small businesses into action." But at the same time, let's also build a real voice for what we feel is a small business. Right.
Yeah.
A lot of organizations a lot of times take that position of ownership and saying, "Oh, small business." It's like, fuck, man, you got 500 employees. That's not small to me, right? There's a layer, especially when it comes to our Latino community, where small business looks a lot different. The biggest business that I know, it's 100 employees or so in this sector of community that I work. But most of the people that I interact with are 1, 2, 5, 10 employees, right? We felt that there wasn't a true representation and voice to what that interest really is. So Lazos wants to fill that gap and educate the small business around, like, in the new era of the world, if you're not civically engaged, you're not going to survive. People listen, politicians listen. Like, that's the narrative, right? That's the political narrative. Small economic development. Well, shit. Let's build a voice for the small business community to impact economic development.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, feel free to reach me on my cell. My number is 602-466-4095. Any friend or colleague or Robert is a friend and colleague of mine. Or you can also send me an email if you prefer. I'd love to grab coffee with you at carlos@wearenoble.com.
You're talking to small business owners and entrepreneurs. Last bit of advice.
It's the cliches, man. You know, it's the cliches. I hate them because
you're a
they're
cliche
true.
kind of guy.
Follow your bliss. Again, if entrepreneurship is about freedom, right? A lot of us chose to become entrepreneurs because we wanted to do our own thing, control our own destiny, build our own vision. Well, then do that. Don't get wrapped up. And if you do, at least have a checkpoint that may be able to help you realize, like, I'm wrapped up into something that it's not really in my heart. We get one life, you know, but within that life, I mean, this is my 4th business venture, right? So if you feel at one point your heart is not dictating what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur, then drop it and find something else, right? So that will be my advice from experience.
So I want to thank you for hanging in there. Carlos Velasco, we'll catch you guys soon.
Thank you.
If you like this video, hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to receive notification of future videos. Thanks for watching.